to him. Now. Good afternoon. Welcome. We will do a bit of housekeeping today on a Monday. So what we will be looking at is to look at the summatives we received and the questions around them. And the second thing we'll look at is the formative for the second module, and I'll get you started on the formative probably about 30 minutes or so. And if there's anything left into it, you'll be able to proceed on your own, but it will at least get you started. And any other question you might have on the summatives that we have already done. The questions that I've received on the email were the question around when must you submit the formatives and how you must submit the formatives. I presume that everybody now has the formatives which we received by email, or you actually received them on e-leader. Please say on the chat groups what formative assessments you have. I know you've got formative assessment for module 1. We have done that on Saturday. Please indicate if you've got the formative assessment for module 2, because it's the formative assessment we actually have to work with today. Thank you. So if the formative assessment is in place, that will solve our problem. If you don't have the summative assessments, it's not a train smash. You should be able to get the summative assessment somewhere during the week. They'll email them to you, but they're also going to put them on e-leader, so you can actually find them on e-leader. So the closing dates that are we will use, if you now go on e-leader, if not today, but tomorrow, e-leader should be able to show you the closing dates. It must say to you when is the final submission of these assessments. So for all the module 1s, I think the closing date would, for all the first assessments, so module 1 to 4, into formative assessments, the closing dates for the formative assessment will be the next date on the calendar that shows that we are going to be doing activity. So which means that day, you'd be expected to submit your final formative for module 1, module 2, module 3, module 4. Those are your first batch of formatives. And that week, you'll actually receive the second assessments for these modules. Second formatives, because this is batch 1, you will receive batch 2 formatives for this module, so that when we sit that week, we are able to go through the second batch of formatives. In those weeks, you'll already be dealing with the summatives on your own. You're having a chat and looking at what can be done. If you've got questions, we'll send us an email or something like that, so that we can communicate with you and help you with it. And that will mean that by the next activity date, you would be expected to submit 2 things. You'll be expected to submit your second batch of formatives, and you'll be expected to submit your first batch of summative, and then you'll be expected to submit your second batch of formatives. The exact dates will be loaded on e-leaders. I'm just avoiding to give the wrong date. So the exact dates will be on e-leader. So where are you now with the assessment instruments? So you are now busy with formatives. You have not started summatives really. So what you should focus your mind a lot is on completing your first batch of formatives. Now and then we'll create a session where we can chat around the formatives, if not in full, but it is a big bulk of it. The rest of the things you'll be able to get yourself. The one for law, because it was the first one, we needed to go through it in full. We've done it together in class and we have finalized that. Today, I'll take 30 minutes roundabout and do the one for module 2. I can see it's here in front of me. And we'll use the same method we used. I'm not going to flight it on screen, so I'm hoping you're having one in front of you. So I'm just going to read from here the same way we did it on Saturday. It was effective and quick, so I'm not going to show it online and scroll through it to save us time, because we'll probably have around 30 to 45 minutes to finish it. So if you want to get me to help you as much as we can, we have to budget time and move along with it. But once this is done, because today is a joint class, so hence it gives us the opportunity to sit down jointly and look at the formative as if we were at activity. But the next class, which is Thursday, it will be a separate class. So you'd have a class which is morning class on Thursday, and then you will now also have another class which is afternoon class on Thursday, and it will actually focus on the timetable on the modules that we are supposed to do on that day on Thursday. I think for the afternoon class, you're supposed to be going around module 2 today, but that module 2 will also go through the formative. So it will actually help you through with the formative, the module 2. So that saves time for everybody. Somewhere along the schedules, if I were to be going to court or something like that, like I'm doing tomorrow and Wednesday, we will then use the joint sessions for us to look at assessments which might still be pending, and I will help you along with the assessments. So any questions from your side regarding assessments, you can type it in the chat group, or you can unmute yourself, you speak, and then we tackle questions around assessments. If there's no any other questions, in the next 3 minutes, that will be about 5:10, we will be starting with formative for module 2. So those who have just logged on and come on board, find yourself module 2 formative, have it in front of you, either on the computer or on paper, because we're going to answer it together like we did on Saturday. So you've got 2 minutes roundabout us. Any other question that you want me to sort out on housekeeping and admin things that we need to clarify? Okay, so while you are there, you can see that the structure of that formative looks exactly the same as the structure of the other formative we were doing. If I am looking at this correctly, you should be having a formative that in front of you that starts with true or false. Indicate whether the following statements are true by ticking whether they are true or false. It will have something at A that says ethics is the study of moral principles and values. And if that is the correct one, then we're good to move right along. Please indicate in the chat group or by thumbs up and say it is the correct one, then we can proceed. Correct, so is the correct one. And yes, the answer for that, Dinege, is true. Anybody else who's brave enough to write false, you're on your own. So we go with A, which is actually true. Objectives and instructions can be used to delay negotiations. This should actually, objections and instructions can be used to delay negotiations. This is also true. The moment people start making objections and they start giving separate instructions while you guys are negotiating, it will make the negotiation unnecessarily long. So that is why it delays negotiation. So that's true. A dissatisfied client of a law firm will tell up to 2 people of the. When I read this, my thinking is only 2 people. So what is the answer for this one, for number 3?
It's false.
Is false. I don't think a guy who's not happy is going to tell many people. We look at number D, then the financial cost of corporate compliance is far less than the financial collapse that may result when a company ignores ethical standards. Well, just to give you, it hasn't happened. I'm trying to think of the 2 companies that you can think of. You think of KPMG, right? KPMG got caught up with an ethical storm during the Zondo Commission, where they didn't audit things properly. Even today, before you appoint KPMG as an auditing company, you think twice. And because you don't want to appoint them because of their scandal, you then tend to want not to appoint them, then they lose money. And those asking, Nolutando asking, again, where are we? We are doing module 2, formative assessments. Nolutando, thank you. And we are not going to show it on screen. You will have to find it on your e-leader or find it on paper if you have it on paper, so that you can look through it. Those who came on Saturday physically, they have it on paper. If you didn't come in physically, it is on e-leader. Download it from e-leader. So we were doing now question D, and we said, no, it is equally costly. Look at what happened to KPMG. So you're answering this with true facts. So the answer for that is true. Then you're looking at E. Respect for the law is foundationed on a high standard of ethics. Respect for the law is the essence of ethics, especially if you are now a legal practitioner. We have talked about this in the morning class, and I've been saying the afternoon class, you never had the benefit of us sitting down and actually discussing this. The morning class looked at the code of conduct for legal practitioners. And I don't know if it's on e-leader. If it's not on e-leader, I'll ask Mel to see if we cannot load it on e-leader so that everybody can download it and you see it from there. On the code of conduct, we saw that one of the requirements was that as a legal practitioner, you must not encourage your client to break the law. And we've all but gone concluding that a legal practitioner includes you as a paralegal, because you worked in the legal practice office. Most of you generally work for law firms and things, or will be working for law firms and things. The moment you tell a client to break the law, you are generally being unethical. So the answer for E would be true. Negotiations succeed because negotiators use intimidating behavior. One of the rules on professional conduct is that when you negotiate, or when you litigate, when you deal with legal matters, you need to deal with legal matters in good faith. So when we're answering these questions, I'll also be giving you can hear that it's followed by a lecture on what informs such a question. Therefore, don't just only tick true or false, just also write the notes on what this thing is, because it might be one of those things that come up in the examination or something which is not in a true or false question. It's just for you to explain something and perhaps give a general example. So if you are going to say, we litigate, we negotiate, whatever you do, it is expected that you do it in good faith. Good faith means do no harm. If your client is right, it's right. If your client is wrong, it's wrong, but do not do wrong things to try and defend your client. That's why, for example, when you're doing cross-examination, you must not badge witnesses. You must not harass, intimidate witnesses. It is tempting, trust me, it is very nice to harass somebody who's just causing you pain, but it's not right. And it's not good for your case after all. So always try and litigate ethically. Therefore, the answer for that will be somebody on the chat group will type the answer. And on G, evidence, thank you, Shimona, that will be the answer. Evidence gathered from a client must be relevant. We discussed the relevance of evidence when we looked at this module. It's actually there in study unit 2, study unit 1 of this module, where they say that when you're going to gather evidence, you also find it when you're going to gather evidence and evidence that needs to be used to deal with a matter, that evidence must be relevant evidence. So if you looked at communication module, study unit 2, I think, that's where you see the types of evidence you need to gather. It shows you can find evidence from the case file, you can find evidence from whatever. It gives you all the list of places where you can find this evidence. But it says, whatever you're doing, the evidence you're gathering must be relevant. And today I talked to an advocate friend of mine, and he says to me, Mr. Pala, have you seen that they've changed the rules of court? They've added punitive costs on it, which has got to do with if you attach irrelevant evidence on an affidavit, the court will slap you with punitive costs. So this is now no longer an issue of me trying to say be ethical. It's an issue that can cost the law firm you work at. If you just pile up evidence and so to just make the file thick, of course, on our side, we are going to print it, but we are going to arrive in court and say, but my lordship, 50 of these pages are irrelevant. We printed them, therefore it will be the cost of printing. But secondly, we perused them. That will be the cost of perusal. And that cost should fall upon the attorney who caused for the affidavit of his client to be deposed with evidence that's completely irrelevant. And that cost will be a personal cost. It will not be a cost on his client. He must pay it in person. If I do not forget, I'll try and find you the amended directives as counsel was talking about. I've not checked them. He just told me about 2 o'clock. I'll check them for you. You can also check and ask your attorneys around. If you work with an advocate, ask them. They should have received it by email from the bar. And so the answer for G would be true. Thank you, Tinik. Diversity means difference, and that's a very negative. You see, the thing about that question, I don't know if I was saying this to the morning class. I was saying there was, when we were reading one of the principles inside the attorney's code of conduct, they said something, and I said, well, they should have added a full stop here and then start the sentence again with another one. Because the moment you add "and," you are joining 2 sentences together. So when you're writing examinations, doing these assessments, look at statements that carry "and" do not only consider whether the first part is true or false and then write true or false. You need to consider the 2 parts. Look at the first part. Diversity means difference. The answer for that is true. And it is thus a negative occurrence? The answer for that is false. Therefore, generally, the answer for H is false because it says diversity is a negative thing. But if we ended before the end and we put a full stop there, the answer then could have been true. So look at things like that. Therefore, the answer for H is false because now you've explained that it is the second leg of that question that makes it false. The board should appreciate that stakeholders' perceptions do not affect the company's reputation. Well, reputation by its very nature, it is built on perception. How we perceive someone or some entity, that is the reputational damage that someone or some entity would suffer. If you are involved in corporate law or the firm you work with is involved in corporate law, you are going to find yourself having to deal a lot with diversity, with not that diversity is on my tongue, with reputational damage suits and reputational damage things. The quickest one to remember is the recent one, Basitana Kumalo, and the other lady now who's now being sentenced to house arrest. It's on the news. You can search it. It's a reputational damage issue, and Basitana Kumalo's reputation is a big reputation because she's more like an entity in her own right. She's a brand in her own right. But you look at what if now you're talking about a big company like KPMG we've given. The reputational damage is very serious. And therefore, if the people at the board of directors, the board of directors are responsible for something called fiduciary duty. You find it in the Companies Act. The fiduciary duty means they are then responsible for the welfare and the well-being of the company. The company cannot fare well, and the company cannot be well with a bad reputation. Therefore, the answer for I is somebody will be kind enough and help the community here and type it in the chat group, as I am going to look at multiple correction answers at number 2. Number 2, the situation here is boring. There's no Mrs. Smith, there's no hairdressers. Hey, it is just a plain question. Well, if we are now looking at, thank you very much, the answer for I is false. So if we are now looking at the next question that follows that, it is helping us to look at these statements and tick the output areas that we would have had if we worked in a law firm. So let's look what would have happened to us if we worked in a law firm. So one of the output areas, it says, ignoring the client's needs and expectations. Will this be one of our output areas? No, we're supposed to look at the client's needs and make sure that the client's needs and expectations are dealt with. Therefore, we are not going to tick that one. Well, if you are going to tick it, you're on your own. So we go to number 2, failing to keep clients regularly informed of progress in their matters. By the way, this is from the very same document I'm talking about. Is from the Attorney's Code of Conduct. The Attorney's Code of Conduct says you should keep the clients informed regularly, and therefore we will not take that because this is negative to what law firms should be doing. Then we go to the next one. It says ensuring that all staff treat clients with respect and act in a friendly, helpful, polite, sympathetic manner at all times. in the morning class the other day, we looked at a clause in the act. It says, be responsible. And one of the ways of being responsible is also being kind and good and treating clients well. And we would have ticked this with a big green tick, yes. And we're going, being nice to clients and making them feel important is the same as the one above. So you know what to do. Rendering a service is a leisurely manner. It is the same as number one, actually. So you cannot just render services leisurely. We'll skip that one. Being punctual is the same as what you would have done in informing the clients promptly and making sure that the clients are informed in time. There's one thing you really need to learn. Maybe let's pontify a bit. In law firms, learn to think of time 1 hour before. Or in legal practice, learn to think of time 1 hour before. Learn to think of a day 1 day before. So if something is due on Friday, if you put it on your diary, please don't put Friday, put Thursday. The thing about law firms is, I was just talking to a client here and we go through his matters and I jokingly say to him, you know what? Maybe I should buy personal protective clothing, PPE, and wear it because I now sound and look like I'm a fire extinguisher. And you work more like the fireman or something. Law firms tend to have fires now and then. And if you're having a fire today, and there's also another deadline for today, you have a problem. But if you're having a fire today, you've got a day to spare to deal with the deadline. The same applies to an hour. If you have to go to court, guys, practically speaking, court starts at 9. That's practical. That's the reality of things. Be at court 7:30. You have arrived. 30 minutes, skip the queues. Because you're wearing black and white, don't stand in a queue. Just skip and go to the front and go with the attorneys. You should, if you're using the lifts, I don't know how big is your court, but if you're something like in Pretoria Magistrate or something, or the High Court, you'll be using a lift or you'll be using the stairs to go upstairs or downstairs or whatever you are doing. It will take you another 15 minutes, 10 minutes. If there's lots of people, it's a rush hour. The moment you land in the courts, you are 8 o'clock. Or if you are like me, you are going in, the first thing you're looking for is a coffee shop. And you grab a coffee and you run in at the coffee shop. That's another 15 minutes so that you can rest and you relax, you walk in. You should be there around about 8:30. If you arrived in the court precinct 7:30, then you do what you do, your mind is rested. When court starts, 9 o'clock, you are there. But there are some other magistrates and judges. I'm telling you, 8:30, they will be starting, and you come late, there will be a story for another day. So please make sure that don't think of your time as 5 o'clock, think it as 4 o'clock. Don't think of your Tuesday, think of Monday. Why am I telling you this long story? Be punctual. Learn it, practice it. Do it not only with work, do it with parties. If they say, let's go to a party, we must come, the party starts 1 o'clock, be there 12 o'clock. You cultivate a habit. The moment that habit grows on you, it becomes automatically, you'll always be the first person to arrive at a place. Okay, so we've got that punctual thing, and I've pulled your ear about it. It's very important. Being secretive about fees and other issues. We have said we've said this in all the classes. We said, make sure that you assist the client to fill the client intake form. After completes the client intake form, the next thing you actually should be doing is to show your client a fee agreement and say to him, dear ma'am, ordinarily, this is the going rate in our law firm. I think the standard rate in most law firms should be 1,800. If you probably work in a very small firm, not by number of people, but maybe by the area you are, they should be charging 800 to 900. Hey, guys working in law firms, what do you charge per hour? Tell. Do tell there. And if you work in your city firms, 1,000, yeah, you see it's going something about it's going something about 2,000 rands. You see it in again. So in our case, we charged 2.5. You see the other one says 2,000. So I'm not the worst guy in town. I thought I was not going to have it because I'm charging too much. So you guys are somewhere. If we are not going, we are all not going there. Yeah. I see. No, I'm not the bad guy here. I'll start consoling myself that the worst thing that has happened was a 500. Yeah, no, ish. Thank you for dealing with my conscience. Yeah, it's not about the going rate, isn't it? So that's what, especially if you're dealing with the corporate firms, they charge this kind of money. And it also depends on the complexity of the matter. Legal fees is a complex issue. But isn't it on the fee agreement, we put a standard fee. We put 1,950, we put 1,850, we put 2,000 rands. Someone said 870. We put it as a standard fees there. But for example, when the matter comes and it's a complex matter, it's likely to take hours and hours. The fee will increase. Sometimes it's not really a complex matter, but it's going to be there in your firm for a very long time, and you will have to bill these people lots of money, like land claims applications. They tend to drag long, and they tend to have lots of documents. With these kind of clients, we tend to charge them less. Not less in money, but less in the rate. So you probably charge them 1,000 rands per hour, because already to peruse their file is the notice of motion is the whole upliver file. And of course, now you understand most of these communities, they also use legal aid. So you probably also follow the legal aid tariffs, which is a very cheap way of doing litigation. Legal aid, they must increase those monies. But then again, if you do legal aid cases, most of those cases, the cases that drag, for example, most of them are your criminal cases. They will drag longer. So whereas their tariffs are too low, then you end up with that. Yes, you are right. It depends on different factors, and we're just giving you different factors as we discuss in them. But remember this, try and be honest when you're dealing with a client. It's important because you're keeping long-term relationships. It's important to keep relationships, especially in service businesses. A law firm is a service business. Make sure that you disclose the fees, and therefore you will not take the one that's just being secretive. We want to be open upfront. You should know what this thing will cost you. Dealing with complaints effectively and firmly and immediately, yes. Dealing with something firmly and immediately, that doesn't mean being harsh. It means being open. If your candidate attorneys tend to make mistakes, they will write wrong things on documents. They will type wrong addresses sometimes, because it's just guys from the university, they just arrived, they're overwhelmed. Be gracious enough to apologize to the client and withdraw the document. If there's cost, pay the cost. And if you're working, I'm saying to you, and you're not the attorney, but I'm saying to you because you work there long term with your principal, with your boss, you are likely to throw in a good weight for the candidate. Well, I understand, say it's a candidate, it's likely to happen. If we treat him well, in long term, we'll enjoy the benefits of having him being loyal to the firm. I can see your boss going, no, man, yeah, and he kicks everything in the firm, but ultimately there will be peace in the village. You need happy candidates. They are useful. Accounting to clients inaccurately is the same as concealing fees. Therefore, we would have ticked 1 to how many things? 4 things? Yes. If you ticked more than 4 things, I get my friend. On your own, no, you have not ticked the proper things. So we're moving on to number 3, match the columns. Let's see what you need to be matching. You need to match reasons why negotiations fail, team building exercises, governance principles, characteristics of good corporate citizenship. If you're going to negotiate, there is a conflict, right? So what happens if you don't deal with that conflict? Negotiation will not even start from the blocks, therefore it will fail. For you to negotiate, you must accept that there is conflict. And even during the negotiations, you must go in there and accept that the very process of negotiating is the process of dealing with conflict. Negotiations is putting down the fires. Like I said, fire extinguishers, firemen. If you're going to negotiate, you are going to be dealing with 3. And at B, they say team building exercises. If you're going to be doing team building exercises, we cannot say ignoring conflict because we have sorted that situation. And because I've got good friends in this chat, in this class, I can tell you for free that the answer for that is 1. My good friends have reliably informed me, Your Worship. If you're not going to listen to them, you're on your own. We move right along to C. Well, the answer to C has to do with governance. A governance thing is don't be the thing about governance is transparency. If you're going to govern people, you need to be honest with them what happens. And I'm thinking some of you, I also deal with a lot of clients. If you ever check the kind of work we do, like I said, sometimes you see it in the newspapers what we do. We do a lot of what are these things called? Homeowners associations, where like your body corporates and things like that. The biggest issue with body corporates, it has got a lot to do with transparency. People tend to not be transparent with how they use people's monies. They're not transparent with how they make decisions. They're not transparent. At the end of the day, governance fail. The same with D. If you're going to be a good corporate citizen, you must admit that you are accountable to the people you are dealing with. Can you see they're related? And it's easy to miss them. It's easy to put C, you put 2, and then D, you put 4. Actually, at C, you must be transparent. At D, you must be accountable, which is actually 2. So I'll move on to number 4. Select only the answer given below, which are functions of a performance appraisal. Select only 5. If you're going to think performance appraisal, you need to be thinking labor relations. You need to be thinking somebody who's doing some form of a job, or a company that's delivering some form of a service. We want to see if these people are doing their job well or whether they're performing well. So if we're going to do performance appraisals, number 1, are we doing them to punish people, or we are doing them to administrate and develop the process? So the answer would be not to punish, to administrate, and to develop the process. So therefore, the first one, I would have ticked it. It agrees with what I think administrative and development purposes are. An example of performance appraisal is you are in a class like this, and they say at the end of the class, complete a evaluation form. Tell whether the teacher is a good teacher, who is teaching well, and all of that. So if that will be used by the law society to fire the teacher and say, no, this says you are a bad teacher, then the law society will land themselves in unfair labor practice if that teacher was then employee of the law society, for example. Because the purpose of performance appraisals is to say to the teacher, you are a very bad teacher, we should take you for classes. I think in my case, they'll take me to classes for a chill, and then in that class, the facilitator will give me a chill pill. Mr. Chill. So, so that would be my recommendations of the performance appraiser. Or I should say to them, chill. Life is not that complicated. Okay, number 2, performance appraisal, they're used for financial purposes. They say, well, we've done performance appraisal for you in the company. We realize that you're not bringing money in the company, and therefore we are firing you. No, they can't. There are many factors which make whether the company succeeds or fails. For starters, you're not the marketing manager. And even if you were the marketing manager, there are other factors. There could be the quality of a product you're marketing and other things. And therefore, your performance cannot be said. It hinges on whether the company performs or not. It is another story when you talk about people like the CEO. I don't know about Bulleland. Yeah, Mara is a good student. Yes, that is a good student. Okay, therefore, legal purposes, no, we cannot do a performance appraisal after performance appraisal. Bulelade, we take the performance appraisal, we take you to CB Apelangel. It doesn't work like that. Performance appraisals are not to punish, but they're to improve. Therefore, the first sentence will actually help us to answer the rest of the things. So we will not tick number 2. For organizational purposes, yes, administration and development, they're organizational purposes. To bring about improvement in performance, yes, you can see number 1 helps you to answer the questions. Né? This is for administrative developmental purposes. Therefore, to bring about improvement is developmental. To decide how competency development will take place is developmental. To see what competencies have been developed, no. It must say how to improve it further. It must not be an evaluation. It's not punitive. It improves. It doesn't condemn. Therefore, you would have ticked 4 things. The first one, definitely, if anybody missed anything in class, they would have ticked the first one. The second one, the third one, they would have skipped them. The fourth one, the fifth one, the sixth one, they would have ticked them because you can see you are using number 1 to answer them. The last one, I have skipped it. I don't know about you. So you then move on to case study, multiple choice. Oh, okay. It's a story of a case study. This is nice. That reminds you of Mrs. Smith vibes. Let's see what happens here. You work as a paralegal. Mrs. Said, okay, Mrs. Said approached you for the legal advice on a divorce matter. No, this is really sad. After you have evaluated her case and investigated the matter, you have to now inform her of the next steps that you will take to assist her as well as the persons or agencies that could be of assistance to her. Oh, poor Mrs. Said. If she doesn't have lots of money, Mrs. Said must immediately, I can see now in my eyes, send it to legal aid. Do you know that legal aid deals with divorce matters, right? If you've got a client who comes to you, they cannot afford, they don't really have money to deal with this divorce matter, please refer them to legal aid to assist them. And if your company is on legal aid, you can pull a negotiation at legal aid to represent them through legal aid. Or if your firm is on legal aid. Now for each of these, let's take and see. Possible solutions for the above case could be referable to a suitable agency. You cannot comment as you are not a divorce lawyer. You can represent her in court. What would be the possible solution for the above case? If you're not a divorce lawyer, what are you going to do? You'll take one. You refer her to a suitable agency, because suitable agencies are legal aid, it will have lawyers. A law firm, it will have lawyers, because you are not a law firm, you are not a lawyer. It's only those two people who can deal with these. When you explain anything to her, you can do so. You cannot have a consultation with a person by telephone. It's best to hear them on the phones. This is relevant. This is okay, fine. Can we schedule a meeting so that I can assist you further? Bring any other documents and everything that's relevant. So number one is out. You cannot send her a report after a telephone conversation. Number two is out. You cannot simply schedule a meeting. Number three is out. But can you really do any of these? Yeah, think of this. She calls you as a paralegal and say, I've got a divorce matter. Can you help me deal with the matter? You say on the phone, no, unfortunately we can't. So in a report, she sends you an email and say, this is the details, please find the attached documents and everything. You can write a report and say, I've perused your matter. We are unable to proceed with it, ma'am. At a meeting, she can set up a meeting and say, may I come and see you? I've got a matter for you to discuss. You say, what's the problem? She says, I'll explain. At the meeting, when you're sitting with her, while she's explaining, you say, no, ma'am, this is not just any other matter. It is a divorce matter. It needs the attention of an attorney. Therefore, you can do any of the above, depending on the circumstances. You see, Martin? Now, at number 6, select only the answer given below, which are personal problems that could cause ineffective employee performance. Let's see. Now I'm sitting with people from Gauteng. They look at the first one, marital bliss. They are looking at me, these guys from Gauteng. They are saying, hey, Mr. Pal, Chua, Umjolo can kill you. Yes, it's true. So from Gauteng, looking at this, say, whoo! Marital bliss, how, Mr. Pal? Umjolo can kill people. It's true. Stay away from marital bliss. If you've marital problems make people to have issues at work. If you've got marital problems, find counseling, my friend. Hey, because it's an issue that affects the mind. Now, let's see. Personal problems that could cause ineffective employee performance. But, well, are you saying when a person is having a marital problem, they cannot work? So they can actually work. I've seen many people work while they're doing counseling and they're attending to their marital issues and umjolo issues, but they still work, you know. But then again, that one doesn't qualify. Let's keep that one and move right along. Financial security. Well, they say if you're broke, you are not going to be a very good employee. Ah, wow. I've been there. Hey, you know that situation where you get your salary on, forget even Friday, now you will blame the weekend for it. You get your salary on Monday, and by Wednesday, by some mystery, some guys calling themselves David Order, they came and they collected all the money, and then when you left with nothing. That has happened to me before. I went looking for those guys called David Order. But I still went to work, you know, persevered. So if people don't have money, they still soldier on and go to work. For number two doesn't help. We will not make it. But we said marital bliss has got another problem. Emotional disorders is when the marital bliss now ends and it becomes marital blues. The moment a person has got marital blues, it comes with emotional things. For example, if the husband was there to fetch the child, this guy now doesn't want to fetch the child anymore. Now you must knock off work, go fetch the child. It's a problem. So this one, we make it right. So please find counseling. Number three, congruence between work demands and family demands. Well, I've worked with guys, paralegals, and candidate attorneys. They see what I do. They say, Mr. Pan, I'm never going to get married. And I said, why? Say, hi.
Well, again.
Legal work, ish. Are you some of those people who are saying it? Chill. Go get married, have children, raise families, take your kids out on Saturday and everything. It helps. You will find a balance. So that one doesn't count. If you try very hard, you will find balance. And people with those still think of nurses.
Mr. Pala, we are struggling to hear you.
Somebody on the other side has got their microphone on. Are you able to hear me now?
Oh.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So we were busy doing congruence between work demands and family demands. You see, we are doing this question in our social worker mode. So no, this can be balanced if somebody is done. So it doesn't really affect work. High work ethic. Hey, people who work very hard are effective. So we skip this one. Family problems are the same as emotional disorders, depression, anxieties, and stress. We'll take this one. Lack of effort is the opposite of high work ethic. If you refuse to take high work ethic, surely lack of effort you should be taking because it's the opposite of the other one. Maturity brings experience and yeah, with gray hair comes wisdom. And a friend of mine came and brought a matter today, and he says to me, "Oh, my friend, this kind of work is having a detrimental effect on your hair." Yeah, it's turning my hair gray. But then again, the more people spend time doing a thing, they get good at it. So maturity does not affect a person's work. Even if I've seen this strange thing in South Africa where they're saying they only employ the youth, and when you're over 35, they don't employ. I've seen that they've removed it now. I've seen people who start careers late, and because of the experience of what they were doing in other things, they excel in those careers. So maturity helps. The opposite is immaturity. Eh? You don't want to deal with that candidate attorney and paralegal who does a TikTok jive at the reception. Well, I had one spare. I always call her so that I can have a smile on my face. She do a TikTok jive, right? I said, there you go, spare. But then again, hey, now and then there must be somebody in the office who brings sunshine. So you'll not take maturity. Physical limitations. People with disabilities can still work. I've seen many of them who do great work. And with the advent of technology, they do wonders. So I would not have said I take that one if I don't consider this issue though. While they do great work, there is a situation where this as a personal problem, it can affect how you work. And I can see that the assessors have marked this on a tick. If you ask me, it's one of those things. If I'm going to assess them, I'll say a mark for you, a mark for you, a mark for everyone. If you say disability causes a problem, yes, it does at some point, but there are also ways to mitigate it. If you say disability doesn't cause a problem, you're also right. It's not always that it causes a problem. You are left with about 4 minutes. And in these 4 minutes, I will do question 7, which is quite longer, but it might land us at about 5 past or 10 past. So you have to bear with it. But if you really must bail and leave, I won't hold it against you. You can just log off and leave. And just let me also say the one thing. I think Mel is sending you guys a LexisNexis link. I've emailed it to her for the class of is it the 16th next week? That class, we will join for an hour, the LexisNexis presentation on legal research, and make sure that you are able to join that class, even if you're attending in the afternoon session, because I don't know when they'll have another one. If you can have space, and you can also ask at your office that it is a LexisNexis thing, they'll show on research, can I please join? Most lawyers will agree that, do join so that you can have the experience of how to research things and how does LexisNexis research things. And once the other companies like Judah come on board, we will then share that with you. And somebody's asking for a WhatsApp group link. We shared it with the group last week. If you have it somewhere in the class, please post it, that link there, so that we can help whoever is asking. And let me help you with this question quickly. Question 7. Indicate whether the following statements are true or false by ticking the relevant column. Being aware of clients' needs and expectation is not a standard. We have done this before. The answer for this is false. Each individual employee should know their own customers. The answer for this is, we said you need to keep good relationships. So this is true. C, there is no need to communicate with the referral agencies. We just did it in the previous answer. Say refer the divorced client to legal aid and other people. So the answer for this is false. Negotiations means forcing the other parties. We said that no, when we are going to negotiate, we are going to do it in good faith. Therefore, the answer for this is false. Junior managers should resolve minor dispute amongst their staff members. We said we prefer a good working relationship, like if we work with Spay, who was dancing a TikTok. At that time, I was a junior with her, and I still remember her dances. We resolve our issues with Pay. She's busy doing an LLB. I think she's third year now. And the answer for that is true. One of the most important steps in the negotiation process is being able to convince the other party to accept your solution by arguing. The answer is false. It is not arguments that convince the other party, it's facts, proper facts. A good negotiator knows when to concede. The answer here is true because we are negotiating in good faith, we said. In the win-win closure, both parties have obtained their ideal outcome. The answer for that is false. My reason being that in a win-win, you receive an outcome. So if we end up on, if this reads like this, let me read it again so that you can see the trick. In the win-win closure, both parties obtained an ideal outcome. The answer is true. Each party obtained their ideal. The answer is false. Because our ideal outcome is we wanted to win. We wanted to have, think CCMA, we wanted to have 12 months salaries, or we wanted to have a client reinstatement, but we say, no, let's get 6 months. And then we say, okay, fine, Ash will take 6 months. It's not our, but it is. But it is. Then we accept it. So the answer is false. Goals for improving own performance in a company should be very ambitious and have no dates. No, if you're going to improve performance in a company, the first thing really about performance is deadlines. They must have every objective and every goal must be coined in a deadline. So the answer then must be false. So take your time, go through the rest of these and home up until page 14. If there are any specific ones that give trouble, we can allocate about 10 minutes before each class to go through. So you need to go through these, mark the ones that you think are giving you trouble. When you come to class and say, hey, let's look at module 2, page what, you can see this is written pages. The one you are doing now is page 6 of 14. So you can tell us on what page, question what, and then we quickly do for 10 minutes. After that 10 minutes, we move on with the rest of the lecture. And next time we do like that until we actually assisted you guys to finish all the assessments if you have to, and the formative assessments. I don't know about you. For me, it's been a long day. One of the things I've done today was to visit the Office of the Home Affairs. And true to its very nature, Home Affairs didn't disappoint me, you know. It was Home Affairs. And sometime around 3:30, they said, oops, the system is offline, let's all go home. After the whole day of waiting for the system to be back online. It's Home Affairs. It never fails to disappoint. See you guys. Thank you very much. Tomorrow, no lectures. Do your assessments. Mark the ones you may need help with. In the next 10 minutes of a Thursday, in the first 10 minutes of a Thursday, tell me where you need help with. We will assist. And I can see the WhatsApp group thing is being shared, and the Lexis link will be emailed to you. And I think Star will also put it on the WhatsApp group for you to be able to register with Lexis for you to attend, and we'll remind you on the day of the class as well. Thank you very much. Good evening.